Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching the Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you my March reading wrap up, and I also have one very small yet important announcement to make. I'll be talking about that announcement towards the end of the video, so please do stay on until the end. And there's one specific thing which is very special about this reading wrap up. It is that I've totally read 13 books, and of those 13 books, 10 are physical books. I don't think I've ever read 10 physical books in just a single month ever in my life. I think this is probably the first time. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. Let's start with the physical books. I said that I totally finished reading 10 physical books in March, right? So that is going to be the major portion of this video. I also managed finishing 2 different series in March, and both of those series are from my 2022 series TBR. So it's an accomplishment in terms of reading for me in that aspect also. The first series which I finished is The Inheritance Cycle Quartet by Christopher Paolini. I read the last 2 books in the quartet, which are Brisingr and Inheritance, in the first 10 days of March. I was actually binging these books continuously because they are so huge, and I knew that if I give a break between the 2 books, I'll not be able to push myself to read them because they are very huge. This one's 750 pages long and this one is 850 pages long, so I don't even know how I finished both of them in 10 days, yet they were really amazing to read. I can say that I enjoyed the series as a whole itself a lot more than I thought I would, and I also have a spoiler free review video for the entire series already out in the channel. I'll link it down in the description. Please do check it out if you're interested, because I think if you like dragons and dragon lore very much, this series will be a treat for you. It's not anything different from traditional fantasy series, but the dragon lore in this one was very deep and clearly explained. I like the bond between the humans and the dragons much more than anything in this series so much, and it is also super descriptive. So as a whole, I enjoyed this series very much. I rated the third book 3.5 stars and the final book 4 stars. Next one is a thriller book, and it is Cross Country by James Patterson. The main reason I picked up this book is because of the fact that I read those 2 books in the beginning of the month. Okay, they are very huge books. At the same time, that series as a whole itself is very slow in its pacing. After having finished those 2 huge slow-paced books, I did not want to read anything that is fantasy as well as slow-paced in any way at all. So I just went forward and picked up this one because it has been sitting on my shelf for over 1 year now. In this book, we follow this detective named Alex Cross, and he is to investigate this family murder which has happened in a house in Washington. When he goes there and investigates the case, he gets to know that the person whose family and themselves are killed is a person whom he knew from his college days. That itself is kind of confusing for him. At the same time, what happens in the successive days is the same kind of murders happen in different places inside Washington itself. The best part I liked about this book is that half of the book takes place inside the US and the other half takes place inside different countries inside Africa. I have personally not read any books that are happening inside real life Africa as a whole. I've read some African inspired fantasy, but not real life Africa. So getting to know the different kinds of things that are happening in the different African countries inside this book was really nice to read. I should say that it was a complete page turn. Okay, each and every chapter in this book is not even 10 pages long. You can just so easily get through the chapters and finish the book as a whole. I read this over a weekend and I can say that it was a great pick for me. Since it is definitely not a genre which I usually gravitate towards, I cannot say that I enjoyed this completely, but it was a great break for me. I rated this one 3.75 stars. The next one is a children's book, and it is The Witches by Roald Dahl. I should say that I was very excited to read this book because I like Roald Dahl as an author very much, and the reason why I picked this is also because of the Inheritance Cycle Quartet. I wanted something even more chill in tone, so I went forward and did this. I can say that each and every one of Roald Dahl books are really light in their tone and they are perfect for children. If you have kids in your home, just buy them this book and let them read it, or sit down and read it with them. I'm sure that you will have a great time and the kids will have a wonderful time as well. This book is just basically about witches and all the things which are conveyed to a small child from his grandmother, and the things that happen when witches actually come into the story. I've not watched the movie which was released last year. I think I will probably watch it sometime soon. Let's just wait and see whether it happens or not. But as a whole, I like this book very much. I did not like it as much as I liked the BFG, but this one came very close to it and I'm very glad that I read it also. It was just a fun, heartwarming time, and I rated this one 4 stars. The next one is my most favorite book from March, and it is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I expected to love this book, but I did not expect to love it this much. It's basically just a sibling story, and I'm such a sucker for familial stories as well as sibling stories in specific, and this book was entirely that alone. Okay, here we follow our main character Nina Riva, who's a world famous model, and she's the daughter of this world famous singer Mick Riva, and also Nina is the person who has taken care of her siblings, who are Jay, Hut and Kit, ever since she became an adult. And there's this custom that Nina has every year where she throws this summer party, and this year what happens is, just like every other year, she throws the party, and the specific thing about this year is that Nina has just been divorced, so everyone thinks that she's very sad in her life. But as a whole, I can say that Nina is in a confused place and she's just in this pattern which keeps on happening again and again in her life. the way in which each and every character was written and the amount to which each and every character was given a space in the main story of Nina was very wonderful to read. We don't only get the story of Nina and her siblings alone in this book, we also get the backstories of their parents as well as their grandparents to some extent also. As a whole, I enjoyed this book very much, and I can say Taylor Jenkins Reid is definitely becoming one of my favorite authors, and I also have a spoiler-free review for this one also. Please do check it out if you're interested. I rated this one 5 stars. The next two books are also another series which I finished, and it is The King of Scars duology by Leigh Bardugo. I can say that I enjoyed the second book, Rule of Wolves, a lot more compared to King of Scars. King of Scars was actually a reread for me, and I can say that it was a great decision because I did not remember most of the things that happened here. I remember the main plot, but apart from that, the things that were foreshadowed here to happen in Rule of Wolves, I did not have a memory of at all. I can say that my reread experience with King of Scars was not that great because I did not enjoy the book more than I read it for the first time. It was just as mediocre as it was in the first read, but Rule of Wolves was awesome. Okay, I am very glad that I read this before getting into this one because I did not remember most of the stuff, just as I said before, but having a fresh memory of this one and then directly jumping into this one was a great decision because there are many things that happen in Rule of Wolves. I can say that if you're a fan of the Shadow Moon trilogy as well as the Six of Crows duology, I'm sure you will like Rule of Wolves a lot because this one has a lot of elements from the trilogy as well as the duology put into this, and we also get to see a lot of main characters from both those series. I'm not going to say who those characters are because it will obviously spoil the books for you, but apart from that, the entire series itself was really well written. I can say that King of Scars was very meh in its standard, but Rule of Wolves just peaked up really good. The first 30% of Rule of Wolves was just as mediocre as King of Scars, but after that 30%, I can say that it was far well written and far well paced. It was nearly as good as Crooked Kingdom, but towards the end, I cannot say that I got that satisfaction that I got from Six of Crows as well as Crooked Kingdom while I was reading Rule of Wolves. And also there was this marketing tactic that was going on last year saying that Rule of Wolves is the grand finale for the Grishaverse, but trust me, it's totally a lie because Rule of Wolves wraps up the story of the King of Scars duology, but there are a lot more things which I'm sure that Leigh is going to explore sometime in the future. I don't know when, but there are many things which are waiting here to be explored and shown to us properly, and I probably think that it will be continuing on in the style of the Six of Crows duology. If we get a third book in the Six of Crows series, it will be awesome. I just expect that happens, and I should say this thing for sure, this series felt more like a high fantasy series compared to any of the other Grisha books, and I have to give that to the series because I did enjoy it a lot. I rated King of Scars 4 stars and Rule of Wolves 4.75 stars. Next one is a YA contemporary that is written in verse, and it is Punching the Air by E.B. Zoboi and Yusef Salam. I can say that I enjoyed this book so much because it was really gut-wrenching in multiple ways, and I think everyone needs to read this book. It is based on the real life story of one of the two authors, Yusef Salam, and here we follow our main character Amal Shahid, who was actually imprisoned while he was a young adult, and the things that happened to him inside the prison and the experiences that he faced there. It is not like he's a person who's very innocent, at the same time he's not a criminal also. There are two parties that are involved in the incident that put Amal behind the bars, but it is really clearly shown how one party is given a lot more advantage compared to the other. Setting aside the things that happen inside the prison, we also get to see a lot more things that happened in the past of Amal's life and the way in which other people's opinions just formed an image of him in their minds. It was really well written in that way. I'm sure that everyone will be able to relate to this book at least to some extent because I'm sure all of us, no matter whom we are, have experienced something like this in our life, at least in a small scale. It was as if the authors were putting a knife in my heart and twisting it so that it bleeds properly, so that I can understand and try to feel what the character is feeling in this one and the issues that are addressed in the book. As a whole, it was really awesome, and also the designing of this book was very awesome because it has a lot of illustrations here and there. I'd highly suggest you to try the physical book rather than going for the audiobook. So obviously I rated this one 5 stars. Next one is the only non-fiction self-help book which I read in March, and I should say that I'm not that happy with it because I wanted to read a lot more non-fiction but I did not. So the book which I read is You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. I've been wanting to read this book for over 1 year now, and I should say that after I finished reading it, I was very satisfied because I got exactly what I expected out of the book. Now this is a book which you have to read with an open mind in order to grasp the concepts that the author is trying to convey to you. It is very similar in tone to The Power of Your Subconscious Mind as well as The Secret, which are also books which you have to just blindly believe and keep on reading so that at some part you'll be able to resonate with it and try to understand what the author is trying to tell you. It is also insanely positive. Okay, that's the main thing which I loved about the book more than anything. In the last chunk of the book, the author actually tells us her own life story, and that one is also kind of motivating in some way. And she has also suggested to read the book twice if possible so that we can understand the book even better. So I'm currently listening to the audiobook of this one after having finished this. I think the audiobook is far better to listen than reading it physically. But as a whole, I enjoyed the experience of reading this book, and I think I have got some value out of it, so I rated this one 4 stars. The last physical book is a reread, and it is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is the first book in the Strange the Dreamer duology. I read this far back in 2020, and I should say that I enjoyed it so much while I read it for the first time. And while I was rereading the book, I was able to understand why I liked this book so much, because the writing of the author is just gorgeous, and I just love all the characters in this book, okay, including the antagonist in this one. They are so well written. I'm not sure whether this is YA or adult, because one of our characters is an adult and the other is a young adult. Our male character Laszlo is 20 years old and our female character Sarai is 17 years old. So because of that, I'm not sure whether to consider this as a YA book or an adult book, but as a whole, I can say that it was very, very beautiful, okay. This book is basically Laszlo just getting an opportunity to go to Weep and explore all the things that are happening in there. Trust me, if you like beautiful prose as well as very well written characters, you will definitely enjoy this one. I have actually started reading the second book, which is Muse of Nightmares also, and I should say that it is just as good as this one. For as far as I have read, I rated this one 5 stars. Moving on to the audiobook, I listened to only one audiobook in March, and it is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is the author's latest YA standalone fantasy novel, and it was an anticipated release for me for this year also. But I should say that I was not that impressed with this one, and it was quite disappointing for me to read. I enjoyed 60% of the book, and the rest 40% I did not enjoy, and it was in such a format that I enjoyed the first 30% and the last 30% of the book, but in between the 40% I did not like at all, because I don't think it was written that well. Here we follow our main character Olivia, who's an orphan, and she's been living in this orphanage for the past 15 to 16 years, and she has this ability to see raids that are just roaming here and there around her surroundings. One day what happens is she gets this letter delivered to the orphanage calling her to a mansion named Gallant because her family resides there, and she decides to go there and spend the rest of her life with them in there. While she gets there, a lot of things happen, and I should say that it was very creepy and spooky to read. I think that might also be one of the reasons why I did not enjoy it that much, because it is summer here and this one seems more like a winter read or a rainy season read because it is spooky in its tone. As a whole, I liked it, but I will not say that it was as much enjoyable for me like the other V.E. Schwab books that I've read so far. I rated this one 3.25 stars. Last two are ebooks, and they are webtoon series which I finished reading in March. Of these, the first one is Melvina's Therapy, which is a horror series. Here we follow our main character Melvina, who's a therapist, and the difference between Melvina and the other therapists is that all other therapists work towards making our lives better and helping us move forward in life. But the thing with Melvina is that she has this sneaky way of getting into the head of the person that she's treating and just making their life worse. As a whole, I liked the series a lot and I rated it 4 stars. The last webtoon is a dragon fantasy series, and it is Dragnarok by KPJ and Magmi. I was expecting a lot from this series, but it was not that great if you ask me. There are just 25 episodes in the first season of the series, and I can say that most of them are really good in the artwork and the way in which the magic is shown to us through the art. But as a whole, the plot was not that solid and there was not so much going in that. It was nice in its tone, but I don't think it is something which I enjoyed that much. I had a lot of expectations for it, but it did not satisfy any of the things that I wanted to see. Even the appearance of the dragons inside the series was not that common. It was nice, and if you just want a quick read, I'd suggest you to try it. So yeah, I rated it 3.5 stars. So yes guys, those are all the books. Now moving on to the announcement. The only announcement which I have is that I'll be going back to work, that is back to office, in just a few more days. So I'll not be able to make as many videos as I'm doing right now as well as in the past. So I've decided to cut down the video schedule to just one video per week, and it will be released during the weekend, either Saturday or Sunday. I hope that you'll be staying on with me and help me keep growing the channel as well as finding a lot more readers to just interact with. So yes guys, that's it for my March wrap up and the announcement also. Don't forget to leave your March wrap up in the comments below, because I'd like to know what are the books that you read. And if you've read any of the books that I've included in my wrap up, feel free to talk about them with me in the comments. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.